Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Farhan, also known as Gunner since 96, and you're watching my post-match reaction video. Arsenal have just lost 1-0 to Aston Villa at Villa Park. A really disappointing defeat, I have to say. I haven't really reviewed the game as such. I haven't really looked over the key moments. I'm just really going off on my instant reactions, how I'm feeling at the minute. I feel really frustrated, angry and disappointed, but also flat. I feel really disinterested. I feel really bothered. I don't really know how to describe exactly how I'm feeling, but just an amalgamation of all of those things. Irritated would be maybe the close enough word to describe how I'm feeling. Really irritated by what I saw, by what I witnessed. There were many factors that ultimately led to the defeat. I don't think Arsenal were good enough to win that game. I think Aston Villa deserved it. Aston Villa were the better side in both halves. They did exactly what they should have been doing from the very start. They executed their game plan to the T. They were brilliant off the ball. They were fantastic attacking and on the ball. They had a clear game plan on how to isolate us in dangerous parts of the pitch. They did it fantastically well. And like I said, going forward, they knew which parts of our defence to attack and where our weak links were. I don't think it was necessarily, I don't think the game was decided necessarily on an early lapse in concentration or a mistake. I think we were always second best in that match, especially in that first half. Although we eased into it, we lacked any confidence. We lacked any conviction. There was no energy. There was no press. I expected Arsenal to play the similar style of football that they played against Wolves. High press from early on, high energy, pressing high up the pitch as well, trying to win the ball back as soon as they lost it, and they failed to do that. And in fact, it was Aston Villa that did that. As soon as we had the ball, pressing, causing us to make that stupid mistake at the back that ultimately led to the first goal. And it was a constant theme throughout the whole game. The back four looked shaky. They looked uncertain uncertain with the ball, without the ball. Villa getting the best of us, and I think they will be a little bit disappointed to not exploit us more than they could have. Bellerin was poor, Holding was poor, Gabriel was poor, Cedric was poor, off the ball, on the ball as well. The build-up play was too slow. For the majority of the game, it was sideways, from one side of the pitch to the other. A lack of inventiveness. Lack of ideas, and actually the only ideas that we had was running down the flanks, trying to get the ball in the box, and Villa knew that, and they set up perfectly well because they isolated Pepe and Saka fantastically well, doubling up on them, making sure that they weren't able to cut in. Cash was brilliant. Target was brilliant in closing down these players, playing really physically. When the balls went into the box, there were either no one in the box or straight into Martinez's hand or just not good enough. And I think that was it really. We lacked in quality in that last third. It wasn't good enough. The final pass wasn't there. And there were opportunities in that game, in the second half especially, where we'd break with the ball. Some good passing play from the back to run down the middle, get into their half really quickly. But it was often that final pass or that final bit of movement that was lacking. And it's been lacking for a while now. I have to say Lacazette, for me, going forward, hitting that final pass, getting into that final position again, was a little bit poor. I think Pepe was a bit poor as well, although he saw most of the ball. The effectiveness he had on the ball was disappointing. Saka as well, being chopped at, being fouled, clearly targeted by Villa. Emil Smith-Rowe looked flat to me. He looked good in most parts of the game on the ball, but off the ball, that intensiveness, that energy was just not there. And I think it's got to a stage now where he needs a rest. I think Odegaard, it would have been good to see Odegaard start instead of Emil Smith-Rowe, but it's all hindsight, of course. Xhaka and Partey for me today was the first time that I noticed that the partnership wasn't quite there. Partey, I think for us, was the man of the match, our best player on the pitch, although he had a few passes that were taken off him or weren't accurate enough. Xhaka for me had a pretty poor game. There were bright moments in his game where he was passing the ball forward, and I just wish I had seen a little bit more of that directness. That's what was missing in our game today. I'm disappointed that Arteta didn't realise Villa had noticed our game plan, which was going down the flanks. So rather than going down the flanks, perhaps maybe playing a little bit central, playing a little bit more direct, going through the middle would have helped. And it most certainly did when Odegaard came on. We definitely saw a different dimension to the game where players decided to, rather than going down the flanks, either cutting in or trying to play the ball through the middle. And, you know, a few opportunities, we got into that box, created a few dangerous opportunities late on. And again, but that was something too little too late for me to notice that sort of change in the 70th minute. It isn't good enough. But Villa were all over it. They were great. They were fantastic. A really good performance by them. Grealish was dangerous going forward. Barkley was dangerous going forward. Watkins was dangerous going forward. Even Traore. But we knew that. We knew that those were the players that were going to cause issues going forward with the number of pace that they have and the ability to pass the ball in and around each other, to build up the play, to get players in behind the defence. We knew what they were capable of. And unfortunately, the defenders today really have to question why they weren't good enough in closing down the play quicker. Oftentimes in the last few games, we've seen Arsenal doing really well in closing down opposition attacking movements quicker early on, rather than allowing them to get into our final third and then deciding to scramble. For me, the game was decided in the middle of the pitch. We simply weren't good enough in the middle of the pitch. We were losing balls all the time, sloppy passes, misplaced passes, not getting into the right positions, often not putting two passes together, either not enough good pace on it, or passing lacking in accuracy. There were issues all around the pitch today, and we just weren't good enough. I refuse to blame this loss on one or two people. I'm not a fan of Willian as much as anyone else is. I've been more critical of Willian than anyone else in that squad, but him coming on didn't make much of a difference in whether we were going to lose or win that game. The whole team, the whole squad today lacked the desire to win that game. We've seen it before. We saw it in December, and it was that style of football. And I'm struggling to understand why that was. Why we decided to stop playing the beautiful football that we were playing against Wolves in the first half. We were all over it in that first half against Wolves. Everything that we were doing in that game, Villa were doing to us. And I guess it was that first mistake, that first early goal that maybe dropped our heads a little bit, that saw the confidence seep even lower than what happened to us against Wolves. I do strongly believe that the Wolves defeat, what happened at Wolves, had a psychological impact, an effect on us. I really hoped that we would see a response, a positive response from the boys. I really hoped that we would go out there angry, looking for a really convincing victory, and I felt that we could. But unfortunately, the old Arsenal mentality, of which we've unfortunately have been having to witness for the last, some may argue 5 to 10 years. The mentality of heads dropping, the mentality of not being able to pick yourselves up. This idea that you can make the moments count when you get it. And we didn't. It was piss poor. There was no bottle. There was no desire. There was no hunger. There was no ability to get the ball and put it into dangerous areas. The substitutions made by Arteta were questionable, of course they were, but Aubameyang coming on could have made a difference. Odegaard coming on did make a difference. Willian didn't make a difference, and I'm not sure why he came on instead of Martinelli. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you whether he was protecting Martinelli against in this type of performance where we were just too poor, or whether it was that he felt Willian could make a difference. And I have to say, you know, I can't seem to find any other argument other than the fact that Arteta does truly believe in Willian, that he can pull something out of the bag. And let's get it right, you know, he didn't have the worst performance ever. He put in a few good balls. He was in the game. He was trying to make things happen. He's obviously not the player that we thought we were going to sign. But I think it's wrong to blame Willian for this loss. He only came on for about 15 minutes, but that last 15 minutes for me was dead. That last 15 minutes for me, in the back of my head, deep down, I knew that we were going to lose this game because as a team, we weren't good enough. We didn't click. We weren't putting the right passes together. We weren't getting into the right areas together. Everything was static. In that last 5 minutes, you would expect players to be running in and around that box, trying to pull defences apart, players out of position. They were brilliant in keeping their formation and shape intact when off the ball, and unfortunately we made it easy for them because we were so static, we were so a bit stiff when going forward. Players just standing still, waiting to receive the ball rather than running around trying to get in the box, trying to create opportunities for themselves. Odegaard had an opportunity, like I said, strung together a few good passes, but this isn't a game where you rely on one person to try and open things up. It's an effort that needs to be made by the whole team, especially against a stubborn Aston Villa defence, stubborn side that defended really, really well. And hats off to them. From Matty Cash all the way to Target, Konsa, Mings. They were brilliant. They really were. They were brilliant. They nullified all the threats that we had. And look, they weren't great in midfield. They weren't brilliant in building up their play from the midfield. They weren't amazing at getting the ball from their end of the goal to our end. We made it easy for them. We lost the ball in key areas. We weren't effective enough in building up play. We weren't quick enough. We weren't the intensity wasn't there to create much of a threat. And like I said, I think the game was won in the middle of the park. This was a very, very disappointing performance from Arsenal, and I'm not going to sit here and blame one person, Arteta or Willian or whoever else it may be, Bellerin. I'm seeing a lot of finger pointing, but I think we need to have a reality check here and just admit the fact that we weren't good enough. We weren't good enough today to win the game. We didn't turn up on the day. From the very first minute, I could see that, you know, this team was lacking in something. It was lacking in that fire. That fire wasn't there. I'm pissed off about it, I have to say. We go for a really lengthy break now. I think 7 days until we play Leeds, because obviously the FA Cup being played. And I don't know where... I remember a time where we were going through a very, very rough patch when we were losing. Obviously, the run of defeats started at Villa and then ended at Burnley. I remember the time thinking, I don't know where we go from here. I don't know how we pick ourselves up. I think it's now that we see these players respond. It's not for Arteta to worry about playing the right tactics, playing the right formation. The formation was great. The players on the pitch were more than capable to win. It was a very, very strong lineup. I still question the tactics of just playing down the flanks, not having a mixture, not having the ability to play directly through the middle. Because when we did, we opened them up. When we did, they weren't expecting it. It was a surprise for them, and we saw players in the box creating a problem. But look, those players in the pitch were good enough to exploit the defence, exploit the opposition, get goals, win matches. We've seen those players time and time again this season put in a good performance and get the result out. This is a collective now. This is a moment for players, 11 players, whoever starts on that pitch, to have a look at themselves, have a real good look at themselves and ask themselves, have I got it in me to grind out the results? Have I got it in me to put in a good performance when we're not having the best run? And that's what it comes down to. because that Wolves defeat was a robbery. I'm not gonna put it any other way. It was a robbery. We were robbed of 3 points. There were refereeing decisions today that went against us. I'm not going to use that as an excuse because I think it's piss poor to use that as a cop out every single week. Let's have it right. Today we were second best, and that was because those players on the pitch didn't want to give it 100%. And we saw a team that was giving it 50 to 75%. And that just isn't good enough when you go to Villa Park and when you're up against a team who's looking for a response after losing 3-1. They gave the type of response that we should have, and we didn't. And that's that. I'm going to record a podcast later on this evening. You can listen to that tomorrow at 8 a.m. if you want a thorough analysis of the game. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please do give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and hit that bell notification to be notified every time I release a video. I'll be back tomorrow to analyse Mikel Arteta's post-match press conference. He didn't look too happy at the end with the referees, and you can't blame him because some of the decisions again that went against us, a possible red card, a penalty offence. But like I said, I don't want to talk about that. I don't think that was the primary reason. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, stay home, stay safe, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much. Bye bye.